Thanks so much for joining, everybody. Today, I am here with Rachel Frank, Booth MBA grad, who I had the pleasure of working with several years ago. And so, first of all, Rachel, it is so good to catch up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. It's been a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to, just kind of reminisce in terms of your Booth journey, and then, talk a little bit about what you're up to these days, for the MBA. So maybe we can start with just kind of the beginning of the whole MBA
Yeah.
application process for you. When did you decide that you wanted to go to business school?
Yeah, I think I made the decision to start looking into programs and trying to figure out what I wanted in
Hmm.
about 2017. So it was about 6 years after I graduated undergrad and was well into my career and was really looking to kind of come back to my roots and explore, finding a easy way to pivot into healthcare. So I had been in aerospace engineering, and then I transitioned into fintech for a little while. And I knew deep down that I really wanted to be in healthcare. My undergrad was in biomedical engineering, and I always thought that that was where I would see myself flourish and find a lot of satisfaction in my job. And so, not to say I didn't, enjoy my job beforehand or the career path that I was on, but I just wanted something that made me feel connected to the people around me and made me feel like there was real good in the world that I was doing. And so decided that I wanted the best way to do it was through business school and trying to get this higher level of education to take kind of the skills that I thought I had and really back it up with some academic and business acumen.
And then as you were applying to business school, what are some resources that you found particularly helpful?
I think you were a huge resource for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I could probably bucket it into three categories of resources. I think one was like professional resources, including yourself, of folks who just knew the space, knew the process, knew how to really get myself to really shine as an applicant. And so that was really helpful for me. And then the last two categories I'll call kind of self-directed, but informal resources. So the first was really finding as many resources I could through networking channels, but really specifically going to these MBA events. So I went to like the Booth event in downtown Los Angeles, and I went to some other events for programs that I was interested in. And so used that as a channel to really talk to people that I didn't necessarily have a connection with, but just to learn what their experience was like and really, get a better feel. And then the third channel of this like informal group was really looking for people within my own network that had the experience either at Booth or another program. And really what solidified Booth for me was that channel of people who really lived that Booth culture and the experience and made it come to life for me before I even stepped foot on campus. And so utilizing these resources helped me kind of just understand what my experience was going to be like, but more important, helped me identify where I was going to fit in and what community was going to work best for me.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, because a lot of times with MBA applicants, they look on the websites and they see similar things across schools, and so I always encourage them to really dig in, attend the school's events, talk to students and alumni to see if that program is right for them, the culture, the resources, just the overall fit, right? Because it's a big investment in time and resources. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about when you spoke with, let's say with students, with alum, when you attended the events, what were a few indicators that showed you that I think both might be a really great fit for me?
I think was really, again, culture for me, just really aligning to what it is that Booth kind of speaks to and stands for. So as a program, it's academically rigorous. There's a lot of kind of social aspects to it, but the one theme that stands out is this pay it back mentality or pay it forward mentality. And I just saw that firsthand with the folks that I was speaking to. And everyone could speak to the rigor, everyone could speak to their the classes and things, but it was the example of people coming out and I say this kind of jokingly, but like coming out of the woodwork to say, oh my God, you're excited about Booth. Let me tell you what my experience was like, or let me see if I can find somebody for you that was, in a very similar situation to you, and maybe they can talk to you about what their experience was. And so that really solidified it for me, because it wasn't just saying the things that the website said, or, what was on the brochures. It was living it, and really feeling and experiencing it for myself.
And then on your journey, were there any other schools that you were considering, or was Booth, one of your main areas of focus?
It really was my top choice, but I did look at Wharton, Stanford, and Harvard as other options for me to apply to. But again, it was just the culture of Booth that spoke to me, and so I really, really hoped that it was the one that I got into.
Awesome.
And thankfully, it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, so I remember, the day that you emailed me and said, you know what, I got in. It just turned my entire day around.
I remember that moment pretty clearly for myself too. I think I saw like the 312 phone number come across my phone. And I was like, oh, it's Chicago. And I was in a meeting, and I stepped out of a meeting and went to an empty room that had construction in it. And so I was like in this building in Sony, just picking up the phone, shaking, like, please tell me this is good news. And thankfully it was great news. And I went back into the meeting and just had like the biggest smile on my face.
Absolutely. It made my day. It just, kind of solidified why I love to do this job, right? Because nothing makes me happier than, hearing somebody say, I got in, and all this hard work, has really paid off. So I'd love it if you could kind of walk us through, the essay brainstorming and essay writing process.
So for me, it was really focused on making sure my story and my journey was really clear. I think I talked about how my career kind of pivoted in different ways that didn't necessarily make sense for me to want to go into healthcare. And so when we talked about brainstorming and what was like the central theme, what did I want to talk about, I focused on this kind of journey piece and making sure it made sense. And so I think the application process has changed since I was there. But if you recall, there was a set of like images that you had to pick from as part of the application process, and you had to find one that kind of spoke to you and kind of talk through it and why did you pick that picture. And I think I ended up picking this image of a woman doing yoga. And to me, it kind of just really represented the like flexibility that I was looking for in my curriculum, which is exactly what Booth is all about, that flexible curriculum, picking your own path, and making it really kind of make sense with my journey. And so if I think about like how you and I collaborated the best, I think it was finding that cohesive voice throughout and making sure that my goals for business school, long-term and near-term, really made sense. And ultimately that Booth itself was the right choice for me, given my goals and given what I was looking for. And then just kind of putting it all together. So I was really appreciative of like the back and forth and being able to brainstorm and ultimately get to a final draft that really captured what it was that I was trying to share with our admissions committee.
I really enjoyed the brainstorming process with you, and just hearing about your life story to date, and then really what were the motivations behind your goals in healthcare, because business schools with Booth absolutely being a part of that, always want to know not just what your goals are, but why, and what's the impact that you want to make. And I remember just being so inspired by how you really wanted to make the healthcare system accessible for all, and for people to have a consistently positive experience so that they could get the care they really deserved. And I remember that's something that stood out, and I remember thinking that's absolutely something to communicate in your application.
Yeah, and I think I really used like my own life experience to explain why I thought it was so important. So just as a side, I've kind of been a user of the healthcare system since I was born, as many of us are, but maybe to a more extreme extent. I've had multiple surgeries throughout my life. I've had a chronic condition that needed to be managed and cared for. And fortunately for me, I got to see this side of healthcare that really, really did care for me at the highest level. But I also experienced moments where I didn't feel like I was valued. And so kind of bringing that back to my essay and talking about what I wanted and how I wanted to kind of improve that experience for patients was really important to me.
And I think another thing we worked on, of course, was your resume. So I'd love to, to the extent that you could remember, if you could talk a little bit about that process and anything you'd recommend there.
I think the best thing that you can do in the resume process is really articulate a couple of things as clearly and concisely as you can. So number one, what did you do? Why was it important? Can you quantify your impact? And then to the best of your ability, what did you learn from those experiences? That last part's a little harder to put in a resume, but can be articulated when you're kind of walking somebody through your resume. And I think you and I kind of went back and forth on like, how do we write this in a way that really shows kind of all those aspects? And so I think we did it a ton. We went back and forth a ton during the pre-MBA process, and then post MBA, or actually during MBA, had even more iterations of that meeting, needing to make sure that we had, that voice articulated in the right way.
Throughout this, this journey, of applying to Booth, you definitely, really showcase, your motivations. I remember you gave very clear reasons for, why Booth, which is, especially relevant to this year's essays. They've changed it a little bit since we worked together, but Booth always wants to know why Booth. And you showed your personal and professional impact on your resume and other elements of your application. And then when you got to Booth, you got to harness that knowledge on the other side of the table. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so one of the best experiences I had was actually being part of our student interview process. So I got to be part of our admissions committee from that aspect. And so, and actually did it as an alumni for a year or so. But we go through this intense process of really identifying what it means to be a true contributor to the community. And so, as in my role as the interviewer, I really got to sit down with potential applicants and really hear them articulate exactly what we talked about. What's their motivation? Why is it so important? And then I as I have my interviewer hat on, I'm also thinking about, how is this person going to fit in with the community? How are they going to help build our culture and keep it going? What are the things that they're going to really learn from this process, and how are they going to add value to it? So it was really great. I think I really had an appreciation for the interview process, kind of sitting on the other side. And if I can say this, I think it's so incredible to see how many talented people kind of go through the process and kind of hear their stories. And I will tell you that the ones that stand out the most in the interview process have that story so well honed in on, and they can speak to exactly what you said. What is their motivation? What are their goals, near term and long term? And then really concisely, why Booth? Like, why is it that this program specifically is so important to you? And I can't tell you how many times I was a little disappointed because somebody regurgitated just like a line or two off of the website, versus the other times where I was blown away when somebody was like very in depth talking about a specific course or a specific interaction, or like a student body group that they were interested in being involved in. And it just showed that you really did care about the experience, and you're not just reading a couple lines off of the website, but you actually feel like this is a place where you want to be, and you've shown that you can do the legwork for it.
Just to wrap up, is there any, if there's a piece of advice that you give to people, applying to Booth, applying to business school in general, what do you think that would be?
Another one of my favorite classes was negotiations. And I think there's a line that I will always take with me, and it's not exactly applicable, but I'll get to it. But it's you don't get what you don't ask for. And so I think it's very similar in thinking about your career and thinking about business school. You don't know if you don't try. And so if you're interested, if you think that Booth, or if you think that an MBA is going to help you in your career, it will. And it's an experience where you get to meet these, people that are going to be your lifelong friends. You have this incredible experience of, diving deep into the academics, but also you give yourself a 2-year break to think about what you really want in your career and make a pivot or a change that is, anybody that's interested or thinking about it, if you've got the itch, just do yourself the favor and dig a little bit deeper, ask those questions, find your network, find a Nisha, and see what you can do to kind of make that dream come true if that's what you want.